I'm a specialist solutions architect at Databricks. I focus a lot on data warehousing and migrations. And today I'm going to do a talk on Databricks Migrations 101. So this is if your company is currently thinking about migrating to Databricks, what are the tools that are currently available that might help in expediting the conversion process. So the agenda comprises of four main topics: a quick background, introduction to Lakebridge, what the five different migration phases at Databricks are, and a quick demo. So when you think about migrating anything over, it is kind of tricky because you do have a lot of interdependencies, and when you think about migrating from one system to another system, it is quite difficult because you want to make sure the output matches with the source system and the target system. So having an automated way to achieve this is something that a lot of customers look for. So we do have tooling that is available, and the main reason this is useful is because it will help us understand what the effort and cost would look like if you were to move to Databricks, how a single tool can help you with migrating from a broad set of sources and ETL, and boost business confidence because it is an automated way. You do not need to do it all by yourself manually. So how exactly do we bridge this gap? Lakebridge is something that Databricks introduced Lakebridge sometime last year, and it is an open source tool. So there is a GitHub repository, and I will show you what the website looks like in a bit. But Lakebridge comprises of three main components: the analyzer, which will help with end-to-end assessment of your legacy code; the converter that will help with converting this legacy code over to Databricks; and the validation will help with data reconciliation and validation. So it will make sure the output that you see matches with what you're expecting. If there are any discrepancies, it will spit out all of those discrepancies for you. So by making use of Lakebridge, you will be able to automate at least 80% of your code, increasing the project speed by at least 2x. So what exactly does Lakebridge comprise of? We have four main things called the profiler. The profiler is something that is probably not done just by the user. You do need like an account team, a Databricks rep to help out, because this will help us gain insights about TCO, which is your total cost of ownership, and DBU, which is your Databricks units. We will be taking a look at your system utilization. So this includes your CPU utilization, your BI and ETL queries, and gain insights about your current workload to translate how that, if you were to move over to Databricks, how would that look like? So how many DBUs would you need, and how expensive or how cheap is it going to be if you were to move to Databricks? With the analyzer, this will give us insights about your current code. So we will be able to take a look at all of your files individually to determine the complexity for every single job. There are four categories: low, medium, complex, and very complex. And this complexity is determined based on the number of functions, the kind of functions, and the number of lines of code. So what I mean by that is, if you have a lot of functions that are readily available on Databricks, which means your current code can be easily translated over to Databricks, then that would be categorized as a low complex job. Medium, you might have some sort of user-defined functions which might need some sort of manual intervention. But with complex and very complex, these are jobs that probably have a bunch of stored procedures or complex logic that cannot be easily translated over to Databricks. So that obviously takes a lot longer to convert. So by using the analyzer, we will be able to estimate how long this migration would take and what the cost associated with this migration would be. With the converter, you will be able to convert your legacy code over to Databricks, and the reconciliation tool will help with ensuring the schema, row, and columns match. So Lakebridge is CLI based, it is platform agnostic, and it is an open source system which can run on any kind of operating system. Now, with the analyzer, again, it will help us understand your code and then estimate what the complexity would look like, if there are any interdependencies, and if there are any such complexities. Right now, these are the sources that are currently supported by the analyzer. And again, converter is mainly to convert your legacy code, estimate what or automate the migration tasks and free up time for critical services. Again, these are the sources that are currently supported. Now, where does Lakebridge fit within this entire process? When you think about the migration phases that we have at Databricks, there are five phases. The first phase is the discovery phase, which is where we would run profilers and give you a questionnaire to fill out. Again, we would be able to gain insights on your legacy workload and estimate TCO and DBU numbers. The assessment phase is where we would run the analyzer for the code complexity assessment. Strategy is where you strategize to determine what you want to, you want to do a small POC, what workloads do you want to test it on. If there's a small project, a high priority project that you want to test out, that's something that is decided in phase 3. Phase 4 and 5 is where you actually execute the POC, see how everything is working, are you running into any issues, and so on. And that's where the code converter would be able to help out. I'm going to take a brief pause here before I go over how exactly the analyzer and converter work. I also have like a quick demo. I'll show you the Lakebridge website and so on. But I just wanted to pause to see if anybody has any questions or need clarification on anything. Yes.
I guess two-part. One is most of the companies there that you had listed, when you say code, are you talking basically about the DBA administrators' codes and procedures that they may have, or the query users' codes, or both? And then that all seems pretty tight in the box. Curated data, is this also, open, semi-structured, unstructured, just big old lakes of data as well that have no definition to them?
Yeah, so when I say code, it is all the code that you probably have, all your CTAS statements and your queries that your users run. I am talking about that code which can be converted over, because a lot of when you think about, say, Oracle, there's like number and a few other data types that are supported on Oracle that are not supported on Databricks. Number is probably translated to decimal on Databricks, but instead of you having to manually change that number data type in all of your .sql files, by running the converter, this will, or by running the converter, you will be able to convert your Oracle code over to Databricks. When you talk about data, Databricks does support structured, unstructured, and semi-structured data, but the converter and analyzer will only take a look at the actual code. We're not going to take a look at your data. So copying data over, you don't even have to copy data over if you don't want to. You can still establish a connection to your legacy system in order to read the data. So our focus is mainly on converting the code so that it is reproducible on Databricks and it runs without any issues. Not sure if that answered your question, but maybe if I do a demo, that might help as well. Any other questions? Okay. So before I do my demo, I just want to show you. So right now in my demo, I am going to convert some Oracle code over to Databricks. This is something that I just found in Oracle's documentation. There are 7 tables called countries, departments, employees, and so on. All of this is pertaining to HR related data. And every table has its own primary key, such as employee ID, but it also references IDs from different tables, such as department IDs from the departments table, and so on. So I did create some Oracle specific files. I can just quickly show you what it looks like. But yeah, just basic commands. In Oracle, I've mentioned what the primary key is. I've added foreign key references and so on. And I've done this for all 7 tables that I've just shown you here. So that is my input source. And my end goal is to convert these 7 Oracle files to Databricks. First, I want to understand what the complexity is, and then I want to convert the code over to Databricks. So, how do I proceed with that? We have something like I said, Lakebridge. You can just search for Lakebridge. It is available to everyone. It is free of cost. You would only have to pay for the compute resources. And one thing to keep in mind, if you were to use Lakebridge, you do need a Databricks workspace, because there are some commands that will be executed and you would need to connect to a Databricks workspace in order to run those commands. There are also a few prerequisites that you would have to have. The first being just Databricks CLI. This particular screenshot kind of goes over how exactly that can be set up. You also would have to configure your host along with the profile. So profile is simply the workspace through to which you would make that connection and run the commands. And there are two ways of setting that up. You can either export it manually, or then follow the steps, set up your profile. And then you do have to install Python, I think 3.10 plus, and Java 11 is needed. So once you have these prerequisites installed, you would then go to the assessment guide and go to the analyzer. So again, kind of just talks about what I've explained, but it is an open source project, so that's why Databricks Labs is the command that you would pass along with Lakebridge. For analyze, you would just pass the analyze command, and then you would be able to run the analyzer. So I have actually, since I have input sources, I have three different profiles, but the one that I'm going to use is E2 demo, which is my workspace. And I have already authenticated to my Databricks workspace. And as you can see, these are my input files that are located in HR input 2, which I will be using for running the analyzer, which I will copy the command real quick. So the way this works is I would pass in my source directory, which is the HR input 2, and pass in the report. This is where the final analyzer report will be generated. I have just renamed it to HR input demo. And then I will just run this real quick. Again, it shouldn't take too long. The first question that I will get is, what is my source system? Because I have not specified what my source system is. And we have 34 sources that are currently supported. So I would just pass in 17. And then it takes like a second or two to understand what it is. So Oracle, which is my source system. And then it will analyze the 7 files that we have. So it's already finished analyzing everything, and it's generated a file in the output directory that I have specified. So let us go to the analyzer, and this is what was generated. So when you take a look at the output, like there are a few things that you want to take a look at. The first one would be the summary tab that would give us information about the number of SQL files that were analyzed, which is 7 in our scenario. And then it will also give us information, or I might have done something, but it will also give us information um, on the complexity. So right now there are 7 low complexity jobs, which is obvious because all I'm doing is just creating a bunch of tables that are referencing other existing tables. So we'll also be able to see what exactly what were the input files and what the complexity would look like. I actually have another report that I've generated for customer orders, and this is a bit different because there are some complex and very complex jobs. So just want to show you that real quick. So with complex and very complex, here there are only 4 scripts, but there is one very high, which is very complex and complex job. Again, you will get this information in the SQL programs, but one thing that is super cool is this functions tab that is also generated in the report. So this kind of tells us the most common functions that are being used across these 4 files. So if you see some of these functions, like max group are readily available on Databricks, but there are some things that are probably user defined functions like I don't know, like order items. That seems to be something that's a user defined function. So you'll know from this functions tab, like if there are any user defined functions, what are they, and what, and these, there's a high chance you would have to manually convert these. So now that we ran the analyzer, let me also run the converter to show you how easy it is to convert, these 7 files over to Databricks. Again, this is the command. The only thing that changes is instead of analyze, you would pass transpile. Again, there would be your input source. For me, it will be the same HR input to directory. I would also pass in my output folder, which is a bit different because I just created a separate folder for the converter. But let me copy this over. The converter does take a bit longer than the analyzer, but not like too long, maybe like 2-3 minutes if it's fairly easy. But if it's a bit too complicated, it will take a lot of time. The analyzer, on the other hand, irrespective of the complexity, it'll take a maximum of 30 minutes to 1 hour to run the analyzer end to end, even if you have thousands of jobs that the analyzer is trying to analyze. So now let me actually pull up the converter folder, and this is the folder that I've created. So it's already converted one of the 7 files, which is jobs.sql, and it's converting the rest. But I can, now it's converted departments.sql too, but I can quickly open it up. So this is the converted file, and this is the original file. So now, if you see, this is all in Oracle syntax with varchar, constraint, and so on, whereas this is just the Databricks syntax of converting the exact same code. Just for time constraint, while this is converting, I've actually converted the code already, and I pasted all of the converted code over in my Databricks workspace, and I just ran this end to end, and it pretty much did everything. Like, oh, the converted code looks good to me. I didn't run into any issues, and yeah, you should be able to test this out. I think once the converter runs end to end, you will also be able to see information on yeah, it'll tell you how many files were processed, how many queries, if there are any errors, what are the errors. It'll also create an error log file, but in our scenario there really isn't, there aren't any errors, so we don't have an error log file. But yeah, it's fairly easy. If this is something that you're considering to do, trying to move to Databricks, I highly recommend you to check it out, because yeah, as you can see, it's, you can just download it by yourself. There is, in the resources section, we also have the GitHub repository with some sample code that you can use for testing purposes. And oh, um, hi Drew, just give me 1 second. Sure thing. And if there are any fixes, bug fixes, if there are any bug fixes or anything that you want us to do, you can always raise an issue. This is something that we will get to. We do have about 400 issues, but we will get to them based on priority. So yeah, if you do have any questions, let me know. I think Drew's on the line waiting to present, but I'll just pause for like 2 minutes to see if anybody has any questions, or Drew can get started on his presentation.
Can you go back to the slide you had with the list of all the sources?
Yes. So I think the terminal has a lot more mentioned. So these are all the sources that we have. Yes. We don't have .NET, unfortunately. Yeah. Yes.
So the categorization, when it's going to be difficult, I forgot what it was, low, medium, high. What is the metrics behind that? What creates it?
So this, again, medium complexity, there are specific rules, but again, like I said, it's highly dependent on the number of lines of code along with the presence of user defined functions. We also have something called the SQL splitter, which we recommend all users to run, because you might have SQL files that are over 1,000 lines long, but using the splitter will ensure that these 1,000 lines can be broken down into smaller files if needed. You might have a bunch of CTA statements, a bunch of stored procedures, and so on. So if you just pass that 1,000-line file directly to in the analyzer or the converter, it's just going to take a really long time. But breaking it down into smaller files will ensure that you get the complexity for each individual file, and the conversion process is also easier because it's just trying to convert like 20-30 lines at a time versus 1,000 lines.
This might be a loaded question. What's the possibility of migrating notebooks?
So migrating notebooks, we don't really have a way right now. It's more about how you can convert the code. Yeah, but there's no direct way to just migrate notebooks from another system to Databricks or anything like that, unless the code automatically works and you can just download it and try copying it over into a new notebook. But yeah, we don't really have a method right now. Yes.
Do you have experience using the SAS conversion, and how much of SAS does it?
So I have not worked on it particularly, but there might be some customer stories that are available. I just don't have first-hand experience. Any other questions? Yes.
Have you worked with any of your customers using this?
Yes. So before Lakebridge, it was called Bladebridge, and I worked with quite a few customers in manufacturing, which is the domain space I support. And yeah, and it's really easy. I've also worked with the PS team, the professional services team, who actually put forth the migration plan and estimates. And I've had customers of mine migrate over from legacy systems over to Databricks, and Bladebridge, Lakebridge was what we primarily used to come up with these estimates. So yeah, if this is something that you're interested in and you're working with a Databricks team already, I would recommend you to talk to them, and they can pull in an SSA like me or someone else to help out with the actual execution of the analyze and the converter. Any other questions? Okay, sounds good. Well, that's all I have. Again, I will be around for a bit, so if you do have any questions, feel free to talk to me after Drew's session, I think. But yeah, thank you, everyone.